This is my second video in my series on my DC 2026 road trip. It came time to leave Meriwether Lewis State Park. I enjoyed my time there, but it was time to go to Nashville. Time to get back on the road, headed north to the northern terminus of the Natchez Trace Parkway. On day 4 of my journey, I left the Meriwether Lewis campground, and as I was headed to Nashville, I discovered a 100-plus-year-old grocery market and gas station that I totally enjoyed and bought some souvenirs at. Then I went on to Nashville, where I visited the Hermitage, the home of President Andrew Jackson. So I ended up finding this Huff's Market in Burwood, Tennessee that's been around since 1911. What an amazing and interesting place to visit. I, of course, bought some souvenirs, a Case knife brand hat and a Case knife, as well as a Huff's Market long sleeve t-shirt that really came in handy when it got down to 40 degrees at night. So I ended up having lunch at a Steak and Shake in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I'd never eaten at one of these, but they're very proud of their 100% grass-fed and grass-finished steak burgers, as well as their fries that are cooked in beef tallow. I'll admit I really enjoyed my meal. Then I headed off to the Hermitage to learn about Andrew Jackson. I was surprised to find a mirror as one of the displays. I mean, look at that handsome guy. I really enjoyed seeing the different weapons used during the Battle of New Orleans. And this was President Jackson's presidential carriage. It was a very much a luxury product befitting his office, but it didn't really fit Jackson's style as a man of the people. In honor of America's 250th birthday, they had displayed 1,776 American flags. They also showed all of the unique versions of the American flag that occurred during Jackson's presidency. I didn't realize there were so many, even though I knew that the flag changed as we continued to add more states to the Union. Of particular interest to me was the Great Star flag, where the stars were in the shape of a star. I don't ever remember seeing a version of this or learning about this in school. This was the official American flag from 1818 to 1819. Here I am striking a pose among the American flags with my old hickory-style walking stick. And finally, I got to see the house itself of the Hermitage. You may not be able to tell, but the driveway going up to the house is in the shape of a guitar because Andrew Jackson's wife played guitar. This was an odd thing for me to document, but I just thought it was so creative. This little selfie stand was installed as I started walking up the road to the Hermitage, and I just thought it was so creative. This is the selfie I took using the selfie stand. Just another shot as I walked closer and closer to the house. This is the angle I could get of the house as I was standing directly in front of it. This was the shot the tour guide took of me with my phone right before we entered into the house because photography was not allowed inside. This was the first picture I took as I walked out the back door of the Hermitage. As I walked through the gardens at the Hermitage, I came upon this circular garden that I thought was really cute. This is the tomb of President Andrew Jackson and his wife Rachel, who passed away before he started his presidency. This is the Jackson family cemetery right next to where the president and his wife are buried, and all of his children and grandchildren are buried here. This is the grave site of Alfred, the last slave of President Andrew Jackson, and after the president's death, he actually became the first tour guide when the Preservation Society decided to turn it into a tourist site. Then he later got permission to be buried next to the family. After leaving the Hermitage, I headed east out of Nashville, headed towards Knoxville. I intended to have a short stay, maybe visit a place or two in town before making my final leg to DC. Although I didn't find this out until 2 weeks after my road trip was over, in fact, while I was making this video, that day on my way to Knoxville, the speed cameras on the Knoxville freeway caught me exceeding the limit. Let's just say they were not as merciful as the Alabama state trooper I'd met a few days before. Hopefully, I'll learn my lesson one of these days. My stay in Knoxville was a quick one night in a motel and back on the road the next day. However, I did make time to stop at a local brick and mortar store that I had followed on X for some time now. But for some reason, I didn't think to take any pictures while I was there or even in Knoxville. So on we go with the rest of my trip on the way to DC. I started day 6 of my trip out in Knoxville, Tennessee, and drove about 8 hours until I arrived in Greenbelt, Maryland, and I stayed at the Greenbelt campground. It's hard to believe it's only about 10 miles to downtown DC at the National Mall from this campground. So I arrived at the Greenbelt campground, I found my site, I pitched my tent and got everything set up, and inside the tent I had my sleeping bag and my new Buc-ee's blanket to keep me warm and comfy through the night. Oh, look at the time. I need to go ahead and wrap up this video, and there'll be a part 3 where I start off with all the sights that I saw in DC.